I'm Meera Alagaraja, Associate Professor in the Human Resources and Organizational Development Program at the University of Louisville. I am also the Associate Editor for Human Resource Development Review. It's a premier HRD journal with Sage Publications. And I'm also served as the chair of the Human Resource Development Review Awards Committee. And I am so thrilled today to be able to invite the award winner for our Best Reviewer Award, Dr. Seung Yoon from Texas A&M Commerce. He's a professor in the Department of Higher Education and Learning Technologies. And today we are looking forward to having a conversation with him about best reviewer tips, advice he might have for us, and what is his preferred reviewing style. So before we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Seung Yoon, who's going to give us a brief introduction of himself. Then I have a set of questions, and then we'll have a conversation. So over to you.
Hi, Meera. Hi, everyone. I am Seung Yoon. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful opportunity. So I work currently as a doctoral program coordinator for our EDD in higher education. And I worked for 60 years as an associate editor for the Human Resource Development Quarterly Journal. So I think I will stop there.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I wanted us to, of course, we are discussing the art and craft of reviewing, which is essential to the peer review process. And a good peer review process is very crucial for research. And therefore, reviewers are very, very important in this whole aspect of developing manuscripts publication. And Dr. Seung Yoon is going to talk to us a little bit more about the specifics of it. So we'll get started with the first question, which essentially is, what, according to you, is the primary role of a reviewer?
Well, when I think about the role of a reviewer, I really believe reviewers kind of play a gatekeeping role for the field. So like you certainly read and learn a lot about many important topics, but how do you really ensure quality? How do you really consume like only important and critical pieces so that whether it is writing, reading, or sharing with the practitioners, like how do you really like be a member of a community, academic community, so you can play a good citizenship role and you see yourself grow in the field. So I talked about academic community. You probably heard about joining the academic community. And when you work in a community, you will see like leaders, core members, and active members and people who are participating, joining the community for the first time. And in the scholarly journey, I definitely believe whether it is you submitting the manuscripts or reviewing someone else's work, like reviewing is an excellent opportunity to engage in the conversation with the scholar peers.
I think it's a great point you make about the academic community. And then I think given our student population, that many of us might come from years of work, like years of experience in the workplace, but then coming into an academic community has its own challenges. So especially for someone who might be very new, even though they have advanced years of experience and success as a working professional, how do you think, especially if you think about being a reviewer, what could be some tips you have as we begin, being a part of this academic community? What does that entail?
Well, I for that question, and trying to reflect my time as a doctoral student, and first time, like whether you include a citation or write using statistical symbols. I vividly remember what it was like, whether my faculty advisor or when you submit a manuscript, what reviewers will say about my work. And when you briefly mentioned about how you many times have rich work experiences, and imagine yourself like starting your career, but then grow in your career to manage people, help with other people, and you end up like giving like a useful feedback as a more experienced person. And so like can you edit this part? Can you rephrase the question one more time?
Sure, sure. Let me also get more specific. So I would say, a part of that wanting to be a reviewer for the first time round, how did you get an opportunity to review your first article?
Oh, so being like relatively new to this format, you certainly will not feel comfortable. Probably one suggestion I really like to make is look at like a criteria different journals are using to evaluate the manuscripts. And by reading the description and criteria, what they expect to like see from different components of the paper, you will be able to learn a lot about like a journal expectations.
Very good. Very good. This is super helpful. Very, very helpful. I'm sure our audience or viewers will benefit from hearing this from you. I also think now is probably a good time to transition into the actual process of conducting the review. So for a second, if you have the article in front of you, what according to you would be the different steps for conducting a review?
So before I give an answer, I'd like to point out this. No matter how long you have been in the field, you will not feel like having an expertise in every topic or method. And certainly don't be concerned about not being qualified as a reviewer. Because if the work is absolutely not like in your comfort zone, then you can always like tell the editor, I like to pass this opportunity. But having said that, nothing really helps more than reading someone else's work and producing your own work and compare your work with the established criteria and getting like a specific feedback. And so when I review manuscripts, I really see whether the work researcher has done really gone through necessary steps to put contents that will potentially benefit the reader.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. Again, that's also very, very helpful for us. At times, earlier on, you talked about like different journals have somewhat different requirements about what is important for them for the manuscript. So I just wanted to, sorry about that. I wanted to help our viewers and say, like, so do you look for the template in which the journal will say these are the main components on the basis of which we'll review your article or we will evaluate your article? For example, HRDR has a specific template. I know the other journals in HRD also have their unique templates. And also this question was not a part of what we discussed. So, but I think it's important to talk about it because you brought it up earlier on.
Well, I appreciate the question because I do feel like I don't many times have a clear answer. But for like starting reviewers, I definitely like to recommend before you dive into signing up for reviewing work, read the handbook or foundation book so that you get exposed to what like a major topic scope of the issues scholars talk about in the field, and certainly there are core journals in the field too. And so by looking up, searching keywords of your interest, then you will get to develop a better sense of like what fits the field, what fits the genre. And so when you have that foundation, then I read the criteria, genre, like acceptance criteria at first, whether I review or whether I submit my manuscripts. And they must have developed them to benefit the audience. So like in the case of HRDR, I understand is a primary genre that focuses on developing and advancing the field. And so like in talking about the theories and related concepts, really like understanding what kind of topics are important, conceptual framework theories are important, and what are the roles of the methodology, even though it's not a like empirical research journal, in coming up with the argument and logic, then understanding like where, how the person came up with the point of discussion is really critical to me. And so two principles I apply in reviewing HRDR and also in general for any other papers is how can I be more constructive and supportive, understanding that HRD is an interdisciplinary field. It's a field that relates to various like issues related to human resources in organizations and various like scopes and different social contexts.
Very good, very good. Thank you. That was also very helpful because again, yeah, I think we want to point out to folks who, especially potential authors who are interested in publishing in HRDR, is to look at, review the template, review the author's guidelines, formatting, things that you can take care of early on before your submission process. So then it really helps you get ready, get your journal ready for publication. Excellent. Then I think we might have covered some aspects of this, but I'll go through the question just to be sure if you wanted to add anything more. What tips do you have for reviewing a journal article? I think we covered that, but is there anything additional that you would like to add? So for example, can we get into like the minutia of the actual reviewing process, right? So specifically from you, because you have reviewed many times for HRDR and also for other journals. You have so many publications to your credit. And so when you actually get an article in front of you, can you just walk us through what do you do first? Starting with accepting the invitation to review. What do you think about before you accept a review? Then what do you do once you get to the actual article itself? Can we get into the details, if you don't mind?
I hope really I can give a very clear, good answer to this question. Nobody really becomes a very knowledgeable, detailed, specific reviewer in 1 year. Reviewing is a part of a scholarly journey, I really believe. And so in my case, I started reviewing my scholarship journey through the Academy of Human Resource Development Conference, like a session track chair. And so in working that function, as well as HRDQ associate editor, I saw how scholars, colleagues I really respect and enjoy working together, how they worked as a reviewer, even though their qualifications can be far stronger and superior. And from the comments, feedback, recommendations, suggestions they were making, I could clearly see how the work could continuously improve over times. And so you don't have to really target, set a goal to do your review perfectly. It's an ongoing conversation, and as long as you really believe, you can provide feedback value to the work so that when revisions are done, and so better resources, points, comments, recommendations can be further integrated into the work. And when critics can be given, so that whatever claims, generalizations, points the work is making really makes a contribution for the future other scholars and also to the practitioners, then as long as you keep those perspectives in mind, then I do believe you have references, resources, colleagues, you can confidently join the reviewer and scholarly community.
Very good. So I was also, to build on what you're saying, and in terms of adding more focus on the steps, right? So, let's get back again to, okay, so let's say you have an article in front of you and you are going to start reviewing, regardless of, whether you're beginning, this is your first review or this is like your 100th review. Let's get into what is your preferred reviewing style. So what do you do, when you get the article? Do you so I guess like an example would be, how carefully do you need to read? Of course, obviously we need to read it very carefully, but what are you do you have something about how you read? Do you take notes? Do you make notes in the downloaded PDF? What do you do? Say a little bit more about how do you keep the review brief? Do you make notes as you're going through the article? You're already thinking, okay, maybe they should strengthen the methods section. So how do you go about, as soon as you open the article in your laptop and you're looking at it for the first time, what do you do?
Well, in my case, I print out or have the criteria right in front of me. And even though I can do it online, I prefer to print it out and read it, read through the paper. And as I go through the paper, like a manuscript from the beginning, line by line, I take notes about what strength is the manuscript has, as well as how the manuscript can improve or address potential issues I see. And so after I finish taking notes, then I rephrase and rewrite it, move things around so that my comments as a bullet point or paragraph can fit each criteria section, so that I put myself also as a person who submitted the manuscript. And I don't know whether I can say this or not, but not always the feedback you receive, you may disagree, or you may not agree exactly. And sometimes you really have to understand what suggestions, how to address those suggestions. And so I try to do that.
Very good, very good. And then actually we are almost on to the last sort of a point for discussion. I think it's also important because, how do you work with the tone of the review? Because sometimes you also hear authors saying that, first of all, it's very hard to receive a critique of our work, that, people have spent a lot of time developing their manuscripts. So, from what does a developmental feedback typically look like versus just a harsh critique?
One distinction I make clearly is whether it sounds like a criticism versus healthy critique. And so it's similar to a listening. So it's not me who judge how the statement will be interpreted. And if you speak it aloud and you get this feedback, put yourself into the position, then my strategy is, okay, so don't do that. And if you get to hear often that criticism, forget about it, you can move on. Most most of the times, even though like a one time or rare times of hearing criticism really can hurt you, but your work is not really determined or judged based on like one criticism. Most of the time, people are in the academy, in the community, because they appreciate the work of doing research and like talking about the research together.
I think that's a great response and super helpful, because again, you know, that's what makes, that's a part of, I think, of how you've been so successful, you know, in all of the different positions of supporting journals and also doing the review work for us. I think this is really helpful. Is there anything else that you would like to add as we begin to wrap up our conversation today?
Well, HRDR is a genre I really love, is probably the right choice of the word here. Not many other genres have a genre really dedicated to developing and advancing the theory. And as a researcher and scholar, I personally can be biased, but believe like balancing and advancing your skills and knowledge, both in theory concepts and like a method, is a very useful thing to do. And so I appreciate like the existence of HRDR introducing, like pushing the boundary of the field about the core and application of the field, and like working for other journal as a empirical section editor. I do believe if you invest in your time for studying, like researching on the theory and concepts, still there's a great journal you can consider for submitting your work. And I can definitely like encourage you guys to submit your manuscript, read the HRDR papers, and for the success of the journal.
Thank you so much for the shout out to Human Resource Development Review. We really appreciate it. I also want to just give a shout out to everybody who will be watching this video at any other point of time. You know, if you want to learn to how to get more involved in the peer review process, please go to the HRDR website. Also, our editor, our wonderful editor, Dr. Yoon she's based at UD Tyler. Her contact information is available there, as well as all of the associate editors who can support with your work. We are happy to talk to you. So feel free to connect with us, and don't feel like everything is a formal process. As Dr. Seung said at the beginning of the conversation, this is an academic community. And would you agree with me that also, especially with HRD, we also are collegial, we welcome conversations about this, and we are happy to demystify all of this process, the peer review process. So feel free to get in touch with us.
I'm happy to be in the gang.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Seung. This was super helpful for us. Thank you.
And thank you, Meera. Thank you, everyone.